Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. I never expected to feel FOMO on an issue as serious as genocide, but watching South Africa take on Israel in the International Court of Justice, there's only one screaming question in my head. Why aren't we there too? Because I wanted to cover this on Friday, but as you saw, I was in London dealing with a Tory MP. Basically, given the Israeli government's indiscriminate bombing of Gaza since October, given the 23,000 people they've killed, South Africa is accusing the Israeli government in front of the International Court of Justice of breaking the 1948 Convention Against Genocide. But what they're actually asking for here is for the ICJ to make a provisional order for Israel to
immediately suspend its military operations in and against Gaza,
based on the legitimate risk of genocide. And given that the Israeli government is still leading their assault against Gaza, with the death toll today standing at 24,000, South Africa is literally trying to save lives here. And they're not alone. Brazil, Turkey, the countries of the Arab League, they're all backing this case, so why aren't we? As a Brit, I felt ashamed for the last few months watching our government fail to condemn the Netanyahu regime for killing tens of thousands of people in Gaza. Rishi Sunak has only recently called for a ceasefire after previously firing his aide for doing the exact same thing. Our leaders, both in the Conservatives and in Labour, have been supporting Israel despite all major human rights organisations saying they were breaking international law. Even back in October, the United Nations said the Israeli government was committing ethnic cleansing, and in November, they called the situation a genocide in the making. And all this against the background of an illegal occupation of Palestinian territories. Killing people in a territory that you have effective control over, where you decide who goes in and out and what goes in and out, that's the embodiment of shooting fish in a barrel. Because according to the Israeli human rights charity B'Tselem, between 1987 and 2021, 87% of the 14,000 people who've been killed in this conflict were Palestinian. So while most people agree that Hamas is an extremist organization that should be stopped because of their willingness to kill innocent people, if you look at those numbers, it's pretty obvious the exact same logic applies to the Netanyahu government. And that was before the 24,000 people they've killed in Gaza since October. So the shame that I feel watching our government support the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is only made worse when I see South Africa standing against him. And you would think that if so few world powers are willing to call out the Israeli government for genocide, the evidence must be weak. But South Africa just laid out all the facts that we all already know, including admissions from Israeli government officials.
As I stand before you today, 23,210 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces during the sustained attacks over the last 3 months. Israel's first evacuation order on 13 October required the evacuation of over 1 million people, including children, the elderly, the wounded, and infirm. Entire hospitals were required to evacuate, even newborn babies in intensive care. The order required them to evacuate the north to the south within 24 hours. The order itself was genocidal, and fuel, water, and food, and other necessities of life had deliberately been cut off. They have been killed if they failed to evacuate in the places to which they have fled, and even while they attempted to flee along Israeli-declared safe routes. At least 200 times it has deployed 2,000-pound bombs in southern areas of Palestine designated as safe.
Like, if you tell a population, hey, leave northern Gaza, go south, the south is safe, and then you bomb the north, and then the south, and then when they flee to refugee centers, you bomb those too. How is that anything but genocidal? And South Africa's lawyers also laid out the evidence of the Israeli government's genocidal intent, namely the desire to destroy or wound the Palestinian population in whole or in part.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, in his address to the Israeli forces on 28 October 2023, preparing for the invasion of Gaza, urged the soldiers to remember what Amalek has done to you. This refers to the biblical command by God to Saul for the retaliatory destruction of an entire group of people known as the Amalekites. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys.
He also pointed out the Israeli government's attempts to hold the entire Gazan population responsible for Hamas's attacks. For example, the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, saying,
and that this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved is absolutely not true. We will fight until we break their backbone. The Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, Israel Katz, called for the denial of water and fuel, as this is what will happen to a people of children killers and slaughterers. Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu said that Israel must find ways for Gazans that are more painful than death. It is no answer to say that neither are in command of the army. They are ministers in the Israeli government. They vote in the Knesset and are in a position to shape state policy.
And in a now deleted tweet, the official Israeli government account said Hamas terrorists weren't the only ones who took part in the horrific massacre of October 7th. Palestinian civilians crossed the border alongside the terrorists. That is a clear attempt by the Israeli government to lump ordinary Palestinian civilians in with the people they say must be killed, in order to justify their indiscriminate bombing of 2 million people in Gaza. It is nothing short of genocidal propaganda. Now, while the tweet's deleted, they forgot to delete the Instagram post, so I'll put the link down below. And while South Africa is out there trying to save lives, what's the UK doing? Well, last week, MPs voted for a new law that would ban public institutions from boycotting Israel. And now, after 10 years of us selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, which they've been using to commit war crimes in Yemen, we're now bombing Yemen ourselves. We disagree on a lot of things in this country, but I think we all agree that we want the UK to be able to hold its head high and proudly on the world stage. Well, if we're going to get there, we have to do a lot better than this. I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.